On today's show, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do this. All right. This is more like it. In today's show, we're going to talk about the Blazers' loss to the Charlotte Hornets, Damian Lillard's continued shooting woes, and a second half that got away from the Blazers. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. Listen to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and now also on YouTube. Make sure if you're listening to the show and you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, head on over to the YouTube channel right now. Just search Locked On Blazers, smash that subscribe button. We'd love to have you join. You can watch this show 5 days a week for free on YouTube. It's also available wherever you get podcasts. So make sure you are listening and making it your first listen every day. Make Locked On Blazers part of your routine. It's the only Trailblazers podcast, so stay abreast of the team. Know what there is to know every morning. Make this show your first listen. We got a lot to talk about in today's show. The Blazers lost to the Charlotte Hornets in Charlotte, the first game of a 3-game roadie, their first extended road trip of the year. Charlotte, Philly, and then Philly tomorrow night, and then they close out things with Cleveland on Wednesday. And the thing started off with a loss. They're now 0-2 on the road. Dame didn't shoot well. The third quarter got away from them with turnovers, and they couldn't get back in it in the final 7 minutes. There was no opportunity for them to come up clutch because they couldn't get to clutch time. Let's talk about all of that, but first, this is the fastest recap in the West. Blazers lose this game 125-113. They led by 2 after 1 and 7 at the break, led by Anthony Simons, 12 points. He hit 4 of 5 3-pointers and gave the Blazers a little lead at halftime. They looked like they were in good shape. But then the third quarter came. Charlotte outscored Portland 36-28 in the third quarter to seize the lead that they would never give back. LaMelo Ball had 11 of 27 points in the third quarter, and Charlotte led 89-88 heading into the fourth. The Hornets basically closed this game with a little mini run over the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. They outscored the Blazers 18-9 in that stretch, with a chance the Blazers, down 1 and a chance to make it a game. Instead, they find themselves down 10 with 7 minutes to go, and they never got closer than 6 in the final 7 minutes. The NBA scores clutch games that are within 5 in the final 5 minutes. This was not a clutch game. The Blazers never gave themselves a chance to come up clutch. LaMelo Ball had a game-high 27 to go with 9 boards and 7 dimes. Kelly Oubre, 26 points and 6 threes. He was the difference. He had as many threes, 6, as Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum had combined. Yikes. Miles Bridges, 19 points and 9 assists. Just an awesome game for Miles Bridges for the Charlotte. On the Blazers side, CJ McCollum led the way, 25 points and 8 assists. He was 10 of 24 from the floor. Not a good shooting night, but they didn't get a lot of other juice. They got 19 points from Anthony Simons off the bench, but he didn't play down the stretch. They elected to go with a potentially better defensive group, and it didn't work. And Damian Lillard, who we'll talk about later in the show, 14 points on 5 of 20 shooting, 2 of 14 from 3, including a late air ball that pretty much sealed it. Dame airballs, Kelly Oubre hits a 3-ball game. That's your fastest recap in the West. Man, oh man, the Blazers continue to have, they're an undulating group, up and down. They're coming in waves. And after a couple games where they looked good, really, really good wins over Memphis and the Los Angeles Clippers, 2 teams that are going to battle for playoff spots in the West, they go on the road to a good Charlotte team. Don't get me wrong. I don't think this is like a championship level team, right? But like a team that's going to compete for a playoff spot in a tough Eastern Conference. And they fell apart in that third quarter and lost the game. I kind of want to talk about that third quarter. I want to talk a little about Dame shooting, and I want to, in general, I don't think this is like a super troubling loss, but it was just it's kind of a reminder of this team's vulnerabilities. Some of the vulnerabilities that Charlotte shot really well. It is indeed a make or miss league, and Charlotte just made a whole bunch of 3-pointers. They go 20 of 42 from 3. They shoot 47% from, basically 48% from the 3-point range. that right there is a difference in the ball game. But some of that is functional, right? Like they got clean looks. I thought in the first half they did a really good job of reading the Blazers' help defense and getting the corner 3-pointers they wanted. Those are good shots. You generate good shots, they're more likely to go in. Some of it is luck. All of shooting is luck, but like it's a function of it. But let's start talking about the third quarter, because that's when really things unraveled in this one, and then we'll kind of unpack the rest of it. But in general, I want to say up front, and I'll close the show with this as well. It's like, this is not. I would say this was a bad, like a not a good loss, but I'm not like no panic button yet. Still I'm still early. It's early caveat for sure, even though if there was some limitations that the Blazers exposed in this one. But the third quarter was when this game got away, and look, the key to this game was going to be to keep the Hornets out of transition. And in the first half, the Blazers only turned the ball over 5 times. They only gave up 2 transition points, and they were in it, right? Like they have a comfortable lead, and CJ hasn't really gotten going, and Norman and Dame and Yusuf Nurkic really haven't gotten going. Like, you're like, okay, really only Ant has had, there were some nice offensive moments from CJ and Norm, but like, hey, they could still get in this because like they haven't got their horses running yet, but and they're winning. Like they're in a good spot. But then in the third quarter, they turned the ball over 5 times. They had 5 turnovers in the whole first half. They had 5 turnovers in the third quarter. Then the second half, they gave up fast break points, only 12, but like after just 2 in the first half, 12 in the second half, like that's how you go from winning to losing. The game kind of got away from them. LaMelo Ball hit some shots and just played fast. And I think more than like the statistical stuff, just the just keeping the Hornets out of the paint, just slowing down, even if it wasn't in true transition, because not if you score, no matter how fast the other team goes, that doesn't get counted as a transition bucket. But that is still, for my money, transition defense, even if it's not scored the same way. And like even the hustle box score on NBA.com or whatever you're charting. But like, I don't think they kept the ball out of the paint well at all. And we don't keep the ball out of the paint. You got to rotate, you got to scramble, and you get caught. And the first half it was over helping. It was like they were loading up on pick and roll actions, and the Hornets were like finding the like pre-rotated guy in the corner, shooter on the weak side when the defense was too far in. When I mean pre-rotated, I'm saying as the action comes, instead of you kind of just come early on the help, and they were too early on the help, and LaMelo Ball can really pass, and he beat him up. In the second half, I thought it was just turnovers and just keeping guys out of the rim, like keeping guys right off the rim. Some of this is who the Blazers are, and like when you have Miles Bridges and Oubre shot incredibly well. He shot better than he's probably capable of, but like. That size, I think, bothered them. I thought Norman Powell did an okay job on Gordon Hayward, but when the Hornets went small and they had PJ Washington just spreading the Blazers out, and sort of the size and the athletes they were able to put on the court, the Blazers couldn't match that. So we'll talk about that a little to close the show. But the third quarter is just like, this is kind of going to be who they are. Like this was not a good defensive game for them. The first half wasn't a good defensive game, but they were in a good position. And then the second half, they kind of fed into their bad defense by turning the ball over a handful of times. Like this is who they are. Is they need to be a low turnover team, and some of it is they need to shoot well. They shot pretty well in the first half, and they didn't shoot well in the third quarter. Like it's like, again, some of this is bad luck, but that's when we're talking one game in a game recap, the sample size is literally 1. So like, some of it is bad shooting luck, but some of it is just bad defense. I thought different flavors of bad defense in each half, and particularly in that third quarter and to open the fourth quarter, just keeping guys out in front of you, let him get to the rim. If you let him get all the way to the rim, bad things happen, whether they get a layup and they score, or they're able to kick out and then find a second drive. And it's the second drive now that you're scrambling that you can't stop, or you give up an offensive rebound or whatever it is. I thought that just sort of keeping dudes in front of you, as the basic keep your man between you and the basket aspects of the Blazers defense, was bad in the third quarter, and that was a difference. They were sloppy in the third. Their offense never got going, and when their offense didn't get going, their defense didn't like rise to the occasion. But this team is built, as much as they want to talk about defense and that improvement and all those things. Coming into the game, they were, according to cleanandglass.com, they were 6th in offense and 10th in defense. Incredible. One of 4 teams in the league that had top 10 offense, top 10 defense through 5 games. Yay, looks good, but then like this team is built to be a good offensive team. They're built to have the offense lead the way. And the defense wasn't there tonight, and you saw what that looks like. But the offense was also bad. And so much of their struggles are just that this group is built to be as good as Dame is, right? Like they're deeper than they've been. I thought Larry Nance gave the Blazers good minutes. I thought Anthony Simons gave the Blazers good minutes. At least certainly offensively gave the Blazers really good minutes. Cody Zeller again had to get stitches in this game. Unbelievable how many times my man gets hit in the face. My uncle, who is a North Carolinian and like a pseudo Hornets fan, sort of a Hornets fan, a Hornets follower for sure, joked before the game if Cody Zeller was going to break his nose for old time's sake, and the man literally cut his brow open in the first quarter. So shout out to my uncle Matt, who saw this coming. But like the Blazers, got okay performances or okay contributions from their depth. Like I don't think that was the big problem, but this boat is built to be captained by Damian Lillard. It's built to be run by him as a star, and he is now in the midst of one of the worst shooting slumps in his career. And in the second quarter, I got some numbers for you about Dame's shooting woes. It looked like he was trending out of it after last game, and he's right back in it in this one. So in the second segment, let's talk a little bit about Damian Lillard's shooting woes. It's not the only thing wrong with the Blazers, but it's certainly it's a big part of the story, and we need to talk about it. I wish we could talk about Dame, busting out of it. I'm ready to talk about the ticking time bomb, but we will just have to wait. But first, before we do that, let's talk about Indeed. It's the hiring partner that gets you what you really want, a short list of quality candidates as fast as possible, because you can do it all. Attract, interview, hire, all on Indeed. It's a powerful hiring tool, and it's actually all of the powerful hiring tools all in one. That's what makes it so wonderful. So don't struggle on your own to find quality candidates. Indeed can help you hire the right people right now. Indeed partners with you on every step of that hiring process, so you can find talent with the skills you need through tools like Indeed's Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post on Indeed.com, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description, and you can even invite them to apply right away. It's as simple as that. With Indeed Instant Match, over 90% of employers get quality candidates as soon as they sponsor their job post, according to the Indeed data. And candidates you invite to apply through the Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than those who only see it in search, according to Indeed's internal data. So, get started right now with a $75 job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Get a $75 credit at Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer valid through December 31st. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Today's show is also brought to you by DirecTV. Listen, in our modern world, the struggle. You got a million logins to juggle, and you got 2 or 3 different devices where, we watch this on this device and this on the other. Let me grab the remote. Let me grab this. Get rid of the hassle. Use this simple way to get all the entertainment you love without all the hassle. It's finally your chance to get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. It brings your live TV, your on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, your favorite movies, all the TV shows you love, all in one place. So that means you don't got to juggle the remotes. You don't got to switch between devices. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion. Get all your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. All right. So we talked about the Blazers, a third quarter, second half meltdown. From the start of the third quarter to the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, the Blazers lost the game in 17 short minutes. They were in it, and then they weren't, and they never got close. But like I said in the first segment, so much of this engine is going to be powered by Damian Lillard's shooting. There are other problems. I do not want to pin this all on Damian Lillard. Robert Covington is not having a good start to the year. Yusuf Nurkic has been up and down, and they couldn't play him at crunch time because the lineup didn't fit him. Norman Powell has missed time, and while today I think Norm was mostly fine, he also did not shoot well. 6 of 15 for 14 points. Like, this was it's not all on Dame. CJ didn't shoot well, right? Like neither of the guards shot well. CJ had a little more like prolific game because he got more shots up and he made 2 more threes, right? But like it's Dame just isn't shooting well. He's still having a pretty good floor game, quite frankly. Like, he had 12 dimes in this one. I thought he ran the offense well in the first half, but he's struggling. He's 13 of 56 now from 3-point range. That's 23%. And this, ladies and gentlemen, now that we are in six games, dear listeners, we're 6 games into this thing. We're basically approaching the worst shooting stretch of Damian Lillard's career. Basically the worst shooting stretch of his entire career. The only one that compares is during his 3rd season in the NBA, from November 28th to December 10th, 2014. He shot 9 of 48 across 7 games for 18.5%. So we're talking, he's been a little better. You just shoot more threes in 2021 than he did in 2014. It's a change in role and change in like style, right? So he's already surpassed way past the attempts and way past the makes. But you got to go back a long way for Dame to have this bad of a stretch where he shot under 25% from 3 for 6 or more games. It just doesn't happen. He's had a bunch of streaks where he's had 3 or 4 games like this, a bunch of streaks where he's been, it's just the randomness of NBA shooting, right? Is like who's a pretty darn good shooter, right? Like one of the very good ones that is in this league. 3-4 games, you can say, you're just missing shots. And I really do believe some of it is that, and some of it is because it's happening now. He went 5 for 7 in the last game, right? But other than that, he has really struggled. Like you take out those and he's 8 for 47 from deep. If you take out those, 8 for 49 from deep, if you take out those threes. Yikes, that's not a good run. And you don't take them out. Like that is kind of like a stupid way to do the math, right? But this is right now, you are looking at, as you watch Damian Lillard, the second worst shooting stretch of his career and the worst shooting stretch he's had in 7 seasons. These numbers are courtesy of StatHead, which is like the stat service provided by Basketball Reference and sportsreference.com. Thank you to the good people at Sports Reference for allowing me to have access to this data, or whatever, for having this data available online. This is as bad as we've seen Dame shoot. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. I think the basic premise is Damian Lillard is missing shots he can make. There's other stuff. The offense is new. I think a little bit too much is being made of how different Dame's role is, and how much the off the ball stuff is making him shoot bricks. Yes, it is new, but they've also given him the chance to match up hunt and go get it. And he's missed shots off the dribble that he can make. He's shooting really poorly on pull-up threes this year. He's shooting below, well below his career average. And certainly the last 3 years when he's like since 2018, when he's just taken off as a pull-up jump shooter, way below that. He's a guy who's going to flirt with 40% shooting from 3 on 8, 9, 10 attempts a game. And he's shooting 23% from 3. Like, this is what it is. He's mired in one of the worst shooting slumps of his career. So I do think part of it is the new system, right? But I think if you say, oh, he's just adjusting to Chauncey's system, you're denying what your eyeballs have seen, which is him miss shots he can make. Some of it is that the shooting is down across the league. Defenses are better. There's like at taking away threes. We've kind of maybe gotten to a point as NBA offenses where people have pushed the sort of the envelope as far as it can go in terms of 3-point shooting, and defenses haven't responded. There's a new basketball. Maybe the new basketball is making people shoot a little bit less. All of these things, right? Like all of it. New system, like defense across the league, new basketball, kind of, maybe like a very small percentage, and just bad luck. Like all of it goes into it. If you want to pin it on one thing, you're not sort of understanding the nuances of the game, and you're limiting yourself to considering all of the parts. And if you consider all the parts, you can understand how we get here. This, I've been saying it a bunch, like, oh, I'm not worried, but it's troubling. I'm a little worried now, like 6 games in, and the way this one ended with, an air ball from the right wing. It's like, okay, this isn't like just, oh man, his touch is a little bit off. That's like an ugly, gross miss. I had Jason Quick on the show last week, and he's emphatic as best reporter covering the team. He's gonna be on the show later this week too. Make sure you catch it. But like emphatic that Dame's not injured. He dealt with a little hand thing, and he's over that. And Dame has been upfront about saying that his the abdominal thing was something he dealt with back with the Olympic team, but isn't bothering him now. But like, it's if it's not a health thing, it's a thing. Like it's just he's just not shooting well, and I'm not worried to the point of, oh no, like he's a bad shooter now. In fact, I went back and looked. So this is that stretch from November 28th to December 10th, 2014. Those 7 games, the worst 7-game shooting streak of Damian Lillard's career, when he shot 19% from 3 for 2 weeks. He followed that up with an 8-game stretch where he shot 48% from 3. So I think it's 2 things. One, he follows up that terrible shooting stretch back in his 3rd season with a red hot shooting stretch. It's 7 games under 19%, 8 games above 48%. Like this is sort of the balance of being a good shooter. I'll say this. That season, 2014-15, Damian Lillard made the All-Star team and had the worst 3-point shooting season of his career. The only season of his career he shot under 35%. The worst shooting stretch of his career also coincided with a bad shooting season. Do I think Dame is going to shoot under 35% from 3 this year? I do not. But the sort of like they need him to like that was a year where he underperformed from 3, and it included his worst shooting stretch of the season. Obviously, those 2 things are related. It's hard to shoot your worst. It makes sense you would have your worst shooting stretch during your worst shooting season. Duh. And I'm not saying that we're on the way there. What I'm merely saying is that while you can say that he'll get right, and I think he will. I still, while I would say I'm concerned, I'm far from panicking. I still think he's going to be one of the best offensive players in the league. He's playing bad basketball. He's just not shooting well. I think he'll find a balance. I think him and Chauncey will find a balance, and I think he'll have a stretch where he goes on a tear like he did back in 2014 when he had followed up a bad shooting couple weeks with a great shooting couple weeks. He shot basically 40% over the next month after that really rough stretch, right? Like I think it'll even out. I think he's going to end up shooting 38% for the year and averaging 29 and 11 or something. Like he's going to be really good. I'm not freaking out, but it's part of the story that we have to address. And at this point, it's closing in on the worst shooting stretch of his career. And it is not the reason why they lost, but so much of like the reason why they lost is because they played bad defense in the second half. And the reason why they lost is because the other parts, Rocco and Norm and CJ didn't pick up the slack. And there's some other stuff that I'll talk about that's close the show that I think is part of, went into the loss. But the most important part of this whole dang thing is what Dame can do. And if Dame is a superstar, the Blazers have a chance to get to their goals. And if Dame is not that, whatever is less than, then it starts to be alarming. And we're 6 games into a very long season, but it's undeniable at this point that this is one of the worst shooting stretches of his career and one of the worst shooting stretches that he's ever had to open a season. He's been a guy he started slow last year and ended up being pretty darn good. I'm pretty convinced he'll be pretty darn good, but at this point, that it'd be better for all involved if he went ahead and started right away. If he just ripped off a couple against Philly on Monday night. The Blazers play back-to-back Monday in Philly and then Wednesday against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And if Dame went ahead and had some wild shooting nights against the Sixers and Cleveland Cavaliers, I think a lot of us would calm down. I'm not worried, but like it's a topic on the show because it's a real part of the season. So no, I think it's at this point, it's highlighted, underlined, italicized, in bold, all that. We all know it's happening. It's not in any funky font though. At this point, it's just a thing to know about the season is that he's not shooting well. Let's wait. I'll put a number on it. Let's say Sunday. That's 4 games from now. We'll check back in. And that's 10 games into the season. And wherever Dame is, we won't talk Dame shooting unless he gets hot. But 10 games in, we'll kind of assess where Dame's at and what everyone's comfort level is. Because I think we've freaked out about Dame enough in this space. But it is just It is part of the story. There were a couple strategic things that I think the Blazers could have done slightly differently in this game against Charlotte, and I want to touch on those and then look ahead to the Philly game in the third segment. So that's what we'll do to close out the show. But before we do that, let's talk about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar that there is. The best tasting protein bar I've ever had. I've been telling you all about Built Bars for a long time. I've also been eating them in my home for a long time because I enjoy them. I'm a fan of the peanut butter brownie. I'm a fan of the cookies and cream. Whether you're into those, and I recommend them, or you're looking for something like salted caramel or double chocolate or the fruit flavors like orange and strawberry, or some of the new seasonal flavors. They got Halloween flavors. I'm sure they'll have, as we roll into other holidays, more of those for a limited time. Like whatever it is, you'll find something that excites your flavor palette, excites your taste buds on built.com. But you'll also, no matter what you're choosing, you'll find bars that pack a punch. They're tasty and healthy. 17 to 18 grams of protein, 130 to 180 calories, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and no more than 5 grams of net carbs. Go get yourself some. Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15. You get 15% off your next order. That's LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. We talked about the Blazers' third quarter and second half collapse. We talked about Damian Lillard shooting. This wasn't all bad. Like, Charlotte's pretty good. We'll see. Like, one of the big questions, if you listen to the show that I did on posted on Saturday, the show that I did after the Blazers beat the Clippers, is like, the big question was like, does this thing travel? Their one road game did look really bad. They gave up 72 points in the second half of this game. That's too many. I'm not a big believer in this team being like an elite defensive team, but I'm a big believer in this team being a better defensive team. 72 points is too many. That was troubling. And I think one of the things, this was a game that was kind of the first game where I was like, okay, I'm ready to see some experiments we haven't seen. And part of it is because the Hornets' ability to go small, and go small and stay big. Like, Miles Bridges is just a load on the wing, and Gordon Hayward is just like a big guy who can handle, so you need size on him. And I thought Norman Powell did okay on Gordon Hayward, so I'm not too worried about that. But when they went even smaller and had Oubre and PJ Washington in the game, and they basically just spread the Blazers out, and that's kind of how they closed the game over the final 7 minutes. I would have liked to see the Blazers make a lineup change that went away from the center, but also gave us, they eventually went small over the final 6 minutes, but like before, as the game was kind of slipping away, I would have liked to see them go to something that was more akin to that. I would have liked, it's not just Larry Nance at center. Like, I'm not just banging the drum because I'm a Larry Nance guy. There's like, I have more logic to it. I want to see Nance and Rocco play together at the 4 and the 5, and I'd love to have Nas on the wing for those minutes. We didn't get there at the end of the game because Rocco had been really bad and needed to sit, and Nurk just wasn't a good matchup. They went with Zeller because he's more athletic, more switchable on offense. Like, or on defense rather. He's a better athlete. He's not as physical, and he's just not overall as good a basketball player. But in terms of just like being able to stay in front of athletes, he's a better choice than teams that can punish the Blazers if they stay big with Nurk. But I would like to see them. I would like to see them go with that smaller group. Nas, Rocco, and Larry Nance. Match size and athleticism with your longest, most athletic parts. We haven't seen that from Chauncey Billups. I assume he's not comfortable with it. He doesn't want to see it. Whatever. He's still figuring this thing out, and the Blazers have been pretty good. So like, But this was a game where I was like, this was the time to do it. The other thing is, I would like to see, just in the run of play, Larry Nance, Rocco, and one of the centers. I'd like to see them play their biggest possible lineup, because there were a couple times when it just size was an issue. Miles Bridges got it on the block on the wing against CJ and once against Dame, and he took both of them to the rack. He's just strong and fast, and he's just a level of athlete that, Dame is strong as hell. CJ has gotten so much stronger throughout his career, but they're not, 6'7", and they don't, and Miles Bridges probably has 35 pounds on each of them. Like, he's a load. Put your put your biggest parts in there. Nasir Little came in and played pretty well with some good energy and made some threes. He's imperfect or whatever it is, but like this was a game that I would have liked to see the Blazers experiment with their lineups, particularly when the game was going south, would be to mix it up and give, they were in it. They were only down 1 entering the fourth quarter. So this wasn't like panic time, like, hey, why did you wait so long to go to it? And I don't mean to suggest that by any means, but they kind of, the third quarter, they were sloppy, and the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, they didn't have it. And I think that was a perfect time to sort of go with a different bench group that could maybe kind of shake things up, and they didn't. That's not like not a big critique. That's like a minor thing that I would file under. Maybe this was worth trying. Like they didn't lose because they didn't do that. And I'm not claiming to be like some sort of, rotations genius, but and Nurk was pretty good for the most part in this game. This was a solid Nurk game, not one of those bad Nurk games where you're like, okay, we got to find a non-Nurk solution. So it wasn't desperate, but this was a game where I think the Blazers' lack of size and athletes on the wing were not exposed, but it was highlighted in this game. Their limitations with how much length and how much size and how many really good athletes they can put out on the floor at one time was kind of exposed by a team that has just a bunch of really good wings and is a really good offensive team. They're hard to deal with. That's why they've been good so far this season. That's why they're 4-2, right? Like, cause they can go small and play fast and challenge teams as a really good offensive group. And I wish the Blazers had tried to match that as best they could. It's hard because like the Blazers starting group is probably their best 5-man grouping. So it's hard to say like, go away from that. And Anthony Simons was playing really well, but it's hard to play Dame and Ant and CJ down the stretch against a team like the Hornets because of just the size problem. Like it's just a tough puzzle to thread, tough needle to thread. It's just like, that's tough. It is, to have those 3 guys out there against that specific team. So it's like, do you bench CJ, who has 25, for Ant? That doesn't seem like the move, even if Ant's playing well. And so it's like, do you pull him for Norm? Well, if you do that, you're really sacrificing a lot on defense, and they'd been struggling to get stops. Like you saw kind of where they end up sometimes, which is that they don't have answers to certain questions. And you saw it with Paul George and the Clippers. It's a really big, talented wing, kind of gave the Blazers the business, but they handled everyone else. And this was a group that has more bigger and talented wings and gave them some issues. LaMelo Ball is not super big and strong, but he's 6'7" and was able to get to his floater and hit some crazy shots. And he's very talented and got going, and they didn't keep him out of the lane. And I don't think like putting Larry Nance on him or something is a solution. I don't mean to suggest that it is, but this was a game where I think the physical limitations of what the Blazers' best group looks like were on display. And I think it could have been worthwhile to experiment with some other groupings. I think that's the simplest way to say it. That is going to do it for today's show. I said I was going to preview the Sixers, but 1, I don't really love game previews because things change quickly. And 2, I ran out of time talking about the lineup stuff, but here's a preview of the Sixers. Joel Embiid is really good, and they don't ever play very minutes with a point guard. And if Seth Curry has a good game, the Sixers win. He's the guy to slow down. If Seth Curry shoots well, he's quite frankly one of the best shooters in the history of the sport. If he shoots well, if he gets hot, if he has 20 plus, it's hard to beat the Sixers. You can kind of let Joel Embiid eat. Joel Embiid versus Nurk should be a fun matchup. Looking forward to that one. But if you're kind of looking for the secondary player as a barometer for how good the Sixers can be, it's Seth Curry. It's when he's good, they're great. Do me a favor, tell your friends about this podcast. They can get it wherever they already get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just search Locked On Blazers and then smash that subscribe button. We post a show every day of the week. It's the only daily Portland Trail Blazers podcast, and also 5 days a week available on YouTube. It's free everywhere you get podcasts and on YouTube. So tell your friends. If you're looking for more Blazer content, tell them to look for Locked On Blazers. We'll be there waiting for them. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.